Hey, hello, hello. I'm going to try this again. I started and I got a little off track, so I'm going to do this a little more concisely. The label of this video is Do you consent to giving your power and choice away? So, what I've learned in the last little while is really important because nothing happens if we're a creator and a conscious creator and we're part of God, etc. And you're going to read some stuff on different platforms or whatever and say that we are actually being kind of fooled into creating negative outcomes, bad things happening, um, taking our choices away. Some of the stuff that just happened in the world recently took our freedom away and said it was to protect everyone and all this kind of stuff. If you look at the way banking systems, credit systems, mortgages, everything that's in this world that we have to pay bills and we have to pay for power and pay for the roof over our head and pay rent and all this kind of stuff. This is all an enforced requirement for us to be able to live or survive. And basically, if we don't pay those things, we have this fear of dying. So, what have you given up in your life? What power have you given up to these systems, to taxation systems, to government, to credit card companies, to all this kind of stuff? And then they get you in their hooks, and then it's like 35% interest, and you can never catch up. And they want to harm you and keep you small and keep you. How much does your power bill change every month? And in the gas bill in the winter and all this kind of stuff. It's all about keeping you chasing money, and taxation is the same thing. I don't know. How to describe it, but how many times have you been chasing money to pay your rent, to feed your kids, to do all this kind of stuff? How many times has it happened? That kind of thing's going on. So we've consciously given our power away. We were born into it, and the system says that we have to do this. We never actually consciously agreed. Do you consent to paying these things? Do you consent to fine print being used to destroy you and change payment terms and tell you that you have to do something or whatever? You have to agree to these things. If you consciously say no, even if a police officer arrests you or whatever, it's like they give you your right, read you your rights, and they say, "Do you understand?" Well, literally, that term says, "Do you stand under them in agreeing that to give your rights away or whatever?" Well, I don't give my rights away to be handcuffed and taken away or these kind of things. Just imagine that all these things that you've signed fine print on or signed and that had 10 pages of fine print, and they come back and whack you and say, "Oh, you owe me this or whatever now, or now it's 35% interest. You missed it one payment or whatever." It's all slavery. Do you consent to slavery? I do not consent to being a slave in any way, shape, or form to anything in this world, to having a house, to having power, to having gas, to having a vehicle, to having anything. Do that. Do that right now. Do you consent? And then just realize the choices that are taken away from you. What choices were taken away from you in the big incident that happened in our world in the last little while? To protect people's safety or whatever, you lost your rules. You couldn't go to a restaurant. You couldn't even go to a store. You had to have things, pieces of paper that said that you were safe and all this kind of shit. Do you consent to all this stuff? This is the biggest thing that's going on right now. We're being tested and proven to take our power back. And do you consent to these things? Do you consent to taxation? Do you consent? There's lots of fuckery going on here in Canada around taxation. They're trying to claw back money and force people to pay $30,000 hotel bills because the government was taken advantage of, etc., or whatever. Who would want to ever be responsible for a $30,000 hotel bill? That would bankrupt a person in an instant, take all their power away. But we have to agree to bankruptcy. We have to agree that we are responsible for those things. We have to agree. This is the way the world works. This is the way energy works. Stop agreeing to shit you don't agree with and start demanding better. We have a choice. The choice is I do not consent to be a slave. I do not consent to paying bills that aren't mine. I do not consent to people taking advantage of me. I do not consent to being affected energetically by powers and darkness and other things. I do not consent. I do not consent. I do not consent to anything in this world unless it's abundance and love and play and fun. Those are the things I consent and I welcome into my world. Anything that's not, I do not consent, and they end right now. Say that to yourself and you'll be surprised. Things are changing and shifting. We are powerful beings. These dark energies and stuff cannot create for us. All they can do is force us into believing something, and then we create it for ourselves. This is really important information you're going to find right now. Go sit with it, and it's going to feel right in your heart and in your chest. Take your power back. I do not consent. I do not consent. I consent to abundance and love and play and fun and beautiful relationships and a safe home over my head and all the money I need to be able to be safe. And I consent to a safe nervous system and no longer living in fight or flight or living on a treadmill or living Groundhog Day, or I do not consent to any of these things. I consent to new and beautiful creations in each and every day. And I do not consent to all the mechanisms and tools and technologies that have been used against me. I do not consent. I stop them right here and right now. What are you going to do? Just take a look, and you're going to feel something inside your heart and make some declarations right here and now. I do not consent to being controlled in any way. I am free. I am free. I am free. I love you. Talk to you soon.